In the quaint town of Willow's Peak, where the streets whispered with the rustle of leaves and the air smelled faintly of freshly baked bread, a young man named Jake lived a life that seemed as unassuming as the town itself. Jake had the kind of smile that could warm a room, a gentle nod that made you feel seen, and a laugh that could make even the sternest face crack into a smile. He was a regular at the local coffee shop, always ordering the same thing, a large black coffee with 2 sugars, and he knew the barista's name, which was something of a rare commodity in a world where people often forgot the name of their own neighbor. His eyes were the color of a clear summer sky, and his hair had that perfect kind of messiness that looked good on everyone except the people who actually tried for it. Jake's apartment was a reflection of his personality, clean, organized, with a few touches that suggested a love for the outdoors. There was a potted plant by the window that thrived under his care, and a collection of hiking gear neatly stowed in the corner. On the walls hung photos of him and his friends, smiling at campfires and standing atop mountain peaks. You'd never guess, looking at these snapshots of joy and camaraderie, that behind that charming facade lurked something far more sinister. The town had its share of gossip, but Jake was not a subject of it. He was the boy next door, the one who helped old Mrs. Jenkins with her groceries and walked the stray dogs home. But what nobody knew was that Jake had a secret. A dark, twisted secret that would eventually unravel the very fabric of Willow's Peak. He had a knack for making friends, especially with the lonely, the lost, the ones who craved companionship like a parched plant craves water. He'd listen to their stories, offer them comfort, and in the end, he'd be the last person they ever saw. It started with Rachel, a girl with a heart as vast as the ocean and a trust as deep as its trenches. Rachel had just moved to town, her eyes wide with excitement and hope. She was looking for a fresh start, a place where she could leave her troubles behind. Little did she know that the handsome stranger she'd met at the bookstore would be the one to bring those troubles to a horrific crescendo. Jake saw in Rachel a vulnerability that he found all too tempting. He approached her with a smile that could melt ice caps, offering to show her around Willow's Peak. Rachel, eager for connection, accepted without hesitation. Their friendship grew over the months, with Jake carefully tending to her wounds and insecurities, planting the seeds of dependency in her fertile heart. He knew her favorite book, her favorite color, the way she took her coffee, just like he knew the layout of the apartment she'd soon call home. Emma was next, a free spirit with a wild streak and a penchant for adventure. She was the kind of girl who'd climb a tree in a sundress and laugh as the fabric fluttered around her. Jake met her at the local park, where she was playing her guitar and singing to the birds. He joined in, his voice harmonizing with hers in a way that seemed almost predestined. He promised her thrills and excitement, and she saw in him the escape she'd been searching for from her mundane life. The third girl was Lily, quiet and introspective, with a beauty that was as delicate as the petals of the flowers she adored. Jake found her at the library, lost in a book on botany. He offered her a bouquet of wildflowers the next time they met, telling her they reminded him of her. She blushed, her heart fluttering like the pages of the book in her hand. He became her confidant, her solace in a town that was still too loud and too crowded for her tastes. All 3 girls were drawn to him like moths to a flame. Rachel felt seen, Emma felt alive, and Lily felt understood. They had no idea that the warmth of his friendship was a facade for the coldness of his soul. His charm was a siren's call, leading them closer to the jaws of a fate they'd never suspect. And as the months went by, the whispers grew louder, the tension in the town thicker. People began to notice that the girls were spending more and more time with Jake and less with anyone else. The whispers grew into a chorus of concern, but by then it was too late. Rachel's disappearance was the first to shake Willow's Peak. She was the kind of girl who'd check in with her friends every day, who'd never miss a family dinner. But one night, she didn't come home. Her phone went straight to voicemail, and her bed remained untouched. The town's eyes turned to Jake, Rachel's constant companion, but his shock and concern seemed genuine. He was the one who led the search parties, who posted the flyers, who held vigils for her safe return. And yet, deep down, a sneaking suspicion began to take root. Emma went next, vanishing without a trace. Her laughter, once a common sound in the park, was silenced. The town's fear grew palpable, a living entity that seemed to cling to every shadow. Jake was there for her friends, for her family, a rock of support in a sea of uncertainty. He shared their grief, mourning the loss of the girl who'd brought music to his life. But in the quiet moments, when the candles flickered low and the sobs had ceased, he felt a thrill. He'd done it again. Then Lily was gone. Her quiet strength had made her a beacon of calm in a town now gripped by panic. Her greenhouse stood empty, her flowers wilting without her gentle touch. Jake's eyes held a sheen of tears when he spoke of her, his voice a tremble of pain. He was the one who found her abandoned bike, who called the police, who offered to help in any way he could. But as the days grew into weeks, and the weeks into months, the whispers grew bolder. They pointed fingers at him, the man who'd been in the lives of all three missing girls. The police began to investigate, their suspicion of Jake growing with each passing day. They combed through his apartment, looking for signs of his dark hobby, but found only the trappings of a normal life. The photos on the wall, the books on the shelf, the potted plant that seemed to mock them with its silent vigil. They interviewed his friends, his colleagues, his family. They all spoke of his kindness, his gentle nature. But as the detectives dug deeper, they discovered the cracks in his armor. The lies he'd told, the moments when he wasn't quite as charming as he seemed. One fateful night, as the detectives pored over the case files, a pattern emerged. Each girl had been seen with Jake in the days before their disappearance. Each had confided in him their darkest secrets, their deepest fears. And each had been found in places that held a twisted significance to those fears. Rachel in a cave she'd once admitted made her feel claustrophobic. Emma in the abandoned theme park that had been the site of a childhood trauma. Lily, her body nestled among the very flowers she cherished, now wilted and lifeless. The town held its breath as the police built their case, piecing together the puzzle of Jake's deception. It was a slow dance of doubt and accusation, with the townspeople torn between their love for the boy they thought they knew and the horror of what he might have done. But it was a dance that was about to come to an end. The evidence was mounting, the noose tightening. And as the detectives prepared to make their move, Jake felt the cold hand of fate closing around him. He knew he couldn't keep up the act forever, but he'd savored the thrill of the chase for as long as he could. The knock on the door was the crescendo of the symphony of suspicion that had been building around him. He answered it with a smile, the same smile that had once promised friendship and now promised only betrayal. The detective stood there, badges glinting in the porch light, and in that moment, Jake knew the game was up. The hunted had become the hunted, and he could almost feel the weight of the handcuffs on his wrists, the cold metal a stark contrast to the warmth of Rachel's, Emma's, and Lily's last breaths. The story of the Willows Peak Butcher would go down in infamy, the tale of a man who'd used his charm to lure his victims to their doom. But as Jake was led away, his eyes. Ahmet stepped off the plane in Milan, his Italian leather loafers sinking into the plush carpet of the VIP terminal. The air had the scent of money and ambition. He blended in seamlessly with the well-heeled crowd, a wolf in designer's clothing. His passport, under the name of a wealthy entrepreneur, had been stamped without question. "Welcome to Italy, Signor Rixai," the customs officer said, nodding at the fake ID. Ahmet's eyes gleamed with a predatory smile. "Crazy," he replied, his accent flawless. His heart pounded with excitement. This was a new playground, a place to build his empire and to feed his dark appetites. The bustling city streets were a kaleidoscope of colors and sounds, but Ahmet heard only the siren call of the ancients. The whispers of history echoed through his soul, a legacy of blood and power that he would soon claim as his own. His chauffeur held the door open, and he slid into the cool embrace of the luxury sedan, his thoughts already racing ahead to the hunt. "Take me to the Hotel Casello," he instructed the driver in perfect Italian. The man nodded, his eyes reflecting the admiration for the mysterious foreigner who had arrived with such an air of authority. Little did he know the monster that lurked beneath the tailored suit. As the car wove through the cobblestone streets, Ahmet studied the faces of the passers-by. Each one held a secret, a beating heart ripe for the taking. The thrill grew stronger with each pulse of his own heart, the anticipation of the hunt making his palms damp with excitement. He had researched the city's elite, their routines, their vices, and their vulnerabilities. The first target was already in his sights, a young and beautiful heiress known for her late-night strolls along the canals. The Hotel Casello was a bastion of opulence, its marble facade gleaming in the moonlight. The doorman greeted him with a flourish, the golden key to his suite offered with a bow. Ahmet stepped into the elevator, his eyes tracing the intricate moldings that lined the walls. The plush velvet of the hotel's decor whispered of secrets held within its walls, secrets that he would soon add to. The suite was a sanctuary, the perfect base for his operations. He unpacked his suitcase meticulously, placing his tools of the trade in a hidden compartment. The gleaming silver knife was a family heirloom, passed down from one heart ripper to the next. Its blade was inscribed with ancient symbols, each one a testament to the blood that had been spilled in its name. He ran his thumb over the edge, feeling the bite of its sharpness, the power of its purpose. The first night in Milan was a whirlwind of business meetings and social engagements, all the while keeping the heiress in the corner of his eye. He played the charming foreigner to perfection, his wit and charm winning her over without effort. As they danced at an exclusive masquerade ball, the scent of her blood was like a drug, intoxicating him, urging him to pounce. But he was patient. The best hunts were those that were carefully plotted, every move calculated for maximum terror. The ballroom spun in a blur of masks and gowns, the orchestra's crescendos echoing the pounding in his chest. He whispered sweet nothings in her ear, all the while imagining the taste of her beating heart on his tongue. She giggled, oblivious to the darkness that lurked so close. It was almost a pity to end such innocence, but the hunger was too great. Ahmet waited until the stroke of midnight, when the party had reached its peak. The crowd provided the perfect cover as he led her onto the moonlit balcony. With a swift and silent movement, he grabbed her from behind, the silver blade glinting in the moonlight. A scream was cut short as he plunged the knife into her chest, ripping out her heart with a wet, tearing sound that filled the night air. The warmth of her life force spurted into his hand, and he brought the still beating organ to his mouth. The taste was heavenly, a symphony of fear and life's essence. He devoured it greedily, feeling the power surge through him. The heiress' lifeless body crumpled to the ground, her masquerade mask askew, revealing the shock frozen on her once beautiful face. Ahmet stepped away, wiping his mouth with a napkin, his breathing even. He had made his mark on Milan. The whispers of his legend would soon spread, the fear of the heart-eater, a delicious morsel for the city's elite to chew on. And as the first droplets of rain fell, washing away the evidence, he knew that this was only the beginning. The hunt was on. The following days were a blur of high-stakes business deals and meticulous planning. Ahmet's new venture in the city was a front for his true purpose, and the locals were eager to do business with the enigmatic foreigner. But as the sun set and the city's pulse grew quieter, the whispers grew louder. The police were baffled by the grisly murders, the local media feeding the frenzy with each new detail. The hunt was becoming more thrilling, the fear more potent. The second target was a renowned art collector with a penchant for the macabre. his gallery a testament to the darker sides of human creativity. Amit knew that such a man would appreciate the artistry of his work, the sculptures of flesh and bone he left behind. The collector's heart would be the piece de resistance, displayed for all to see in a gruesome tableau that would make even the most jaded soul recoil. The night of the hunt arrived, the moon a sliver in the velvet sky. Amit donned a new mask, a smile carved into the leather to mimic the one he had taken from the heiress. The art collector's penthouse was a fortress of modern security, but to a creature like him, it was merely a playground. He scaled the walls with the grace of a spider, the whispers of his ancestors guiding his every move. Once inside, he found the collector in his private chamber, surrounded by his grisly treasures. The man's eyes widened in terror as Amit stepped into the light, the gleaming knife in his hand, a silent promise of a swift and painful end. The collector's heart thudded like a drum, a delicious symphony that Amit had been waiting for. He stepped closer, the scent of fear thick in the air, his mouth watering at the thought of the power that was about to be his. The room was a maze of shadows and gore, a reflection of the collector's twisted soul. As Amit approached, the man's eyes searched for an escape, a weapon, anything to save himself. But it was too late. The Heart Eater's grip was like iron, the knife a blur of silver as it found its home in the collector's chest. The sound of the heart being torn free was like a crescendo, a sweet finale to the symphony of horror that played out in that room. Amit took his prize, the heart still pulsing with the last vestiges of life. He raised it to his mouth, the warmth a stark contrast to the cold air. The collector's eyes, wide with terror, went dull as the light left them, his body crumpling to the floor like a discarded toy. The Heart Eater had claimed another soul, another piece of the power he craved. The whispers grew louder, urging him on, feeding his insatiable hunger. And as the rain fell harder outside, mingling with the collector's lifeblood, Amit knew that Milan was his for the taking. Each heart brought him closer to becoming the apex predator in this city of secrets. The hunt would continue, the fear spreading like a stain across the fabric of the city. For he was not just a killer, he was a legend in the making, and the world would tremble at the mention of his name. Amit's next move was strategic. He knew that with each kill, the authorities would tighten their grip, so he retreated into the shadows, allowing the whispers to grow into shouts. The Heart Eater had vanished as quickly as he had appeared, leaving behind a trail of carnage and a city gripped by terror. His business ventures grew, a veneer of respectability hiding the monster beneath. But the whispers grew too loud, the pressure of his newfound infamy a thrilling game. The thrill of the hunt was addictive, and soon the whispers grew into a deafening roar. The third target was a powerful politician, a man who thought himself untouchable. Amit studied him from afar, watching his every move, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The politician's mansion was a fortress of opulence and greed, surrounded by high walls and armed guards. But Amit was not deterred. He knew that the heart of this beast would be the sweetest yet. He waited until the night of a masquerade ball, the same night that had brought him his first victory. As the man wandered through his garden, lost in his own sense of importance, Amit struck, his blade whispering through the night. The politician's heart was like a fruit ripe for the picking, the taste of power and corruption melding with the fear that filled his veins. Amit took his time, savoring the moment. The guards were alerted too late, their panic a sweet symphony to his ears. He disappeared into the night, the heart of Milan's elite in his grasp, leaving a crimson trail in his wake. The city was now his stage, the people his pawns. Amit reveled in the chaos, the fear, the power. He had become more than just a man. He was a legend, a creature of the night that stalked the streets of Moab. His hunger grew with each passing day, and the whispers grew to screams. But amidst the panic, there was one who watched with a different kind of interest. A detective, one who knew that the Heart-Eater's reign would not go unchallenged. The detective, a man named Lorenzo, had seen the darkness before, had felt its cold embrace. His eyes held a knowing look, a spark of understanding that sent a shiver down Amit's spine. The game was changing, the hunted becoming the hunted. But Amit was not one to back down. He would not rest until he had claimed the heart of Milan itself, until the whispers of his ancestors were silenced by the screams of his victims. And so the dance began, a deadly tango between predator and prey. Each move calculated, each strike a declaration of war. The streets of Milan became a battleground of shadows and secrets, where the line between wealth and horror grew ever thinner. The Heart-Eater's legend grew, his name a curse on the lips of the powerful and the powerless alike. But Lorenzo was not easily fooled. He saw through the facade of the charming entrepreneur the monster lurking beneath the surface. He studied the murders with a meticulous eye, piecing together the clues that others had missed. The detective knew that the Heart-Eater would not be satisfied with just the rich and powerful. No, he craved more, he craved chaos. And Lorenzo knew that to stop him, he would have to become a part of the darkness he sought to destroy. The hunt grew more intense, each encounter a delicate dance of cat and mouse. The Heart-Eater taunted the detective with his brutal displays, leaving behind clues that led nowhere, taunts that grew more personal with each passing night. Lorenzo felt the weight of the city's fear on his shoulders, the pressure to end this nightmare before it consumed them all. The climax was inevitable, a battle of wills that would shake the foundations of Milan. The Heart-Eater grew bolder, his hunger insatiable. The whispers grew to a crescendo, the city's heart racing in time with his own. And when the final act unfolded, it would be a bloody symphony that neither would forget. The story of Ahmet, the notorious Turkish killer businessman, had only just begun to unfold in the tapestry of Milan's dark underbelly. His appetite for power and fear grew with each heart he consumed, his legend weaving through the streets like a crimson thread. The city's elite whispered his name in hushed tones, their once secure lives now a tapestry of fear and uncertainty. Ahmet's next target was a powerful mafia don, known for his ruthless grip on Milan's black market. His heart would be a trophy to surpass all others, a declaration that no one was safe from the Heart-Eater's blade. The Don's compound was a fortress of darkness, surrounded by loyal soldiers who would lay down their lives to protect their leader. But Ahmet was a master of infiltration, his charm and wit as sharp as the knife he wielded. On the night of the full moon, Ahmet slipped through the shadows, his eyes gleaming with the anticipation of the hunt. He moved with the grace of a panther, his steps silent on the cobblestone streets. The Don's guards were no match for his ancient instincts, falling like pawns before an unseen force. He reached the Don's chambers, the air thick with the scent of power and fear. The Don sat at his desk, surrounded by the spoils of his criminal empire. He looked up, his eyes narrowing at the intrusion. But it was too late. Ahmet struck like lightning, the silver blade slicing through the air and into the Don's chest. The man's eyes widened in shock as Ahmet ripped out his still beating heart. The room echoed with the sound of the Heart-Eater's victory cry, a chilling melody that sent a shiver through the very soul of the city. But as Ahmet reveled in his triumph, he felt the first stirrings of a new presence, a force that could threaten his dominion. Detective Lorenzo had been doggedly following his trail, piecing together the grisly puzzle of his murders. The detective's eyes held a fierce determination, a promise that he would not rest until the Heart-Eater's reign of terror was brought to an end. The game was no longer just about the hunt. It had become a battle of wits, a clash of two obsessions that could only lead to a bloody finale. The cat and mouse game grew more intense, each encounter a deadly dance of anticipation and dread. Ahmet continued to taunt Lorenzo with his macabre displays, leaving behind scenes that would haunt the detective's dreams. Yet the detective remained steadfast, his resolve unshaken by the horrors he faced. He knew that to capture the Heart Eater, he must understand him, become one with the darkness that he sought to purge from Milan's streets. The final confrontation was set against the backdrop of the city's annual masquerade ball, a fitting stage for the dramatic conclusion of their twisted past to do. Ahmet had chosen this night to claim his ultimate prize, the heart of the city's mayor, a man whose corruption had seeped into every corner of Milan. Lorenzo waited in the shadows, his own mask in place, ready to end the nightmare that had gripped his city for too long. The ballroom was a whirl of masks and secrets, the air thick with the scent of bloodlust and fear. Ahmet's eyes scanned the room, his target in sight. But as he moved in for the kill, a firm hand gripped his shoulder, spinning him around to face the one man who had dared to challenge him. It was Lorenzo, his eyes gleaming with the same intensity that fueled Ahmet's own hunger. "You've made a mistake," Lorenzo said, his voice low and menacing. "You've made this city your hunting ground, but you've forgotten that there are those who protect it." Ahmet's smile grew cold, the whispers of his ancestors urging him on. "And who do you think you are to stand in my way?" "I am the shadow that follows your every move," Lorenzo replied. "The voice that speaks for the hearts you've silenced. I am justice, and tonight, I will be your end." Their gazes locked, two predators poised for battle. The music stopped, the dancers froze, and the heart of Milan held its breath. The final act was about to begin, a dance of death that would determine the fate of the city. Ahmet felt the whispers of his ancestors grow silent, a sudden calm before the storm. He knew this was the moment he had been waiting for, the hunt that would cement his legend. With a flourish of his cloak, Ahmet lunged at the mayor, his knife a streak of silver in the flickering candlelight. The room erupted in screams and panic, the illusion of safety shattered by the Heart Eater's unmasked fury. But Lorenzo was swift, his own blade flashing as he intercepted Ahmet's strike. The two men circled, their breaths ragged, the air around them crackling with tension. Ahmet could taste the detective's fear, the beating of his heart, a tantalizing rhythm that called to his own dark hunger. Yet there was something else in Lorenzo's eyes, a spark of defiance that intrigued him. The whispers grew louder, urging him to finish the hunt, to claim the ultimate prize. But as the detective parried and dodged, Ahmet found himself enjoying the challenge, the thrill of the chase more exhilarating than any he had ever known. The battle raged on, the two men a blur of steel and shadow. Ahmet's blade found flesh, but not the heart he craved. Lorenzo was a worthy opponent, his skills honed by a lifetime of chasing monsters like the Heart Eater. The ballroom became a macabre stage for their dance, the masquerade of civilization stripped away to reveal the raw, primal instincts that lay beneath. And as the night grew darker, the whispers grew fainter. Ahmet felt a strange kinship with the detective, a bond forged in the fires of their shared obsession. But the hunt must end, the cycle of fear and power had to continue. With a final desperate lunge, he aimed for the mayor's heart. But Lorenzo was there, his blade blocking the fatal blow. The Heart Eater's eyes narrowed, his hunger a ravenous beast that demanded to be fed. Their blades clashed again, the sound echoing through the ballroom like a death knell. The air grew thick with the scent of blood and the promise of a brutal finale. Ahmet felt the power of the ancients coursing through him, the legacy of a lineage that had feasted on fear for centuries. Yet, in the eyes of the detective, he saw a reflection of himself, a mirror to the darkness that he had become. For a moment, the Heart Eater faltered, the weight of his actions crashing down upon him. But the whispers grew stronger, the hunger more insistent. He could not, would not, be denied. With a roar of fury, he shoved Lorenzo aside and plunged his knife into the mayor's chest, the heart's final beat a sweet symphony in his ears. The detective watched, his eyes filled with a mix of horror and a strange, twisted respect. The Heart Eater stood over his fallen prey, the city's elite cowering before him. But as he raised the still beating heart to his lips, the whispers grew silent. The room spun, and for the first time, Amit felt a flicker of doubt. The detective's words echoed in his mind. "You've made a mistake." Had he? Or was this simply the next step in his ascension to infamy? The story of the Heart Eater would continue, but the battle for Milan's soul was far from over.